welcome to all of you. My name is Anna Bunlo. I'm a programs officer at ESACH, and I am delighted to be your moderator for tonight's event, the ESACH Talks, Heritage Under Threat, Contemporary Action and Response. And also all credits to my fellow programs officers, Uni Bhakti, who's also here, and Sophia Dibbs for organizing this event. And it's wonderful to see you all, so many tonight. And for those who are new to us, ESACH, and soon to be Youth.Heritage.Europe, stands for the European Students Association for Cultural Heritage. And we are an international or European network of students and young professionals working to create a platform for dialogue, collaboration, and action within the heritage sector. Our goal is to connect the next generation of heritage leaders, and I think events like this are at the heart of what we do. And tonight we gather to discuss a topic of critical importance, and in a world marked by rapid change and unprecedented challenges, our shared heritage is facing threats from multiple fronts. It brings together emerging and established voices to explore how communities are working to safeguard culture, identity, and history amid adversity. Before we begin, a quick note on the scope of our discussion, because when we launched the open call for this event, we received an overwhelming number of powerful and important submissions related to heritage in times of crisis and conflict as well. And so we had to make a choice because we had so many submissions. Therefore, we chose to ensure a focused and meaningful conversation tonight, approaching the topic in a broader understanding of threats, more focused on threats such as environmental, digital, and hybrid threats. So we could focus on, in a next talks event, more on heritage in times of conflict and war. So keep an eye on our socials, because this next event will be in December, if you're interested, of course. And now for a few house rules to ensure a smooth event for everyone. I would like to ask to turn your camera on if you like. It will feel more comfortable for the speakers, I think. And please keep your microphones muted throughout the presentations to avoid any background noise. The session is being recorded, so if you're uncomfortable with turning your camera on, please don't. And if you have a question for anyone or one of our speakers, please type it in the chat box, but we'll discuss it at the end of the event. So if that's all clear, let's turn to our speakers. And we are very happy with this fantastic lineup, starting with our keynote speaker. And it's my great honor to introduce her, Dr. Valerie Higgins. And she holds an honors degree in ancient and medieval history and archaeology from the University of Liverpool, and a master's in economic archaeology from the University of Sheffield, where she also earned her PhD on human remains from an Italian monastery site. And now she's based in Rome. She teaches and researches Italian archaeology, and her recent work is particularly relevant to our discussions, as it examines contemporary issues in archaeology, including the impact of recent history on practice and the crucial role of digital media in shaping public experience. And she also serves on the advisory committee of conservation science and cultural heritage at the University of Bologna, and has been a visiting scholar at the University of Cambridge and an honorary research fellow at the University of Kent. And she's passionate about public engagement, dedicated to bringing archaeology to a wider audience through teaching, lectures, and television appearances. So it's a very long list of experience, and we are very thrilled to have her here and set the stage for our conversation. So please, Valerie, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And first of all, thank you so much for inviting me. It's a great honor to be here and to meet you all. I'm very impressed by the way you've organized this group. I think it's very important. But moving forward, it will be very important. I mean, now as I'm in the kind of latter stages of my career, I still have as my kind of group the people who came through with me, being a student, being a graduate student, having your first job, you know, moving on to middle stage career. And now we're all the same group moving forward. So I think that's something to bear in mind. You are all friends now. You will probably also all be friends in like 20 or 30 years' time. You know, you will be reminiscing on this. But it's extremely important because this is your support group and this is how you get things done. You get things done by sticking together and working as a network, and you're so much more powerful as a network. So I think it's a really important thing that you're doing here and creating a sense of community with yourselves as well, so you can assist each other. And I also very much liked your focus on interdisciplinarity. Interdisciplinarity is something that, you know, heard for like decades, people say, oh, we need to be interdisciplinary. But, you know, it's easy to talk about, but actually quite exceptionally hard to do in practice, because it requires people to be very flexible in their thinking, to move out of their comfort zone, to kind of actively listen to their colleagues. And that can, you know, sometimes be a very challenging thing to do. But I can tell you that it absolutely is the right thing to do, you know, and to keep working at it. Don't be tribal. Don't, you know, be in your little silo of I'm this kind of practitioner or this kind of scientist, because we've got so much to learn from each other by not doing that. And thank you for that wonderful introduction. I've been around a long time. That's why I've done a lot of things. It's not really anything down to me. And I did start off as a kind of regular archaeologist digging. I worked actually for local government in Britain and then went into regular academe. But more and more, I realized, especially living in Rome, that sometimes you just can't sit on the sidelines. You know, you have to get in there and start fighting when you see things going wrong. And I think we can all see things going wrong. And, you know, you're beginning your professional career, I think we'd all agree, in very difficult times. This is not an easy period, not for anyone. So in thinking about what I would say this evening, I thought I would ask myself, you know, what would I think are the most important things? Because when you're in difficult times, you really need to prioritize. And you really need to say, okay, what are the most important things I want to achieve? Because it's not an easy environment and I might not be able to achieve them all. And I would say the most important thing is to engage with the big questions of the day, the big questions which affect our society. And these are things like, I mean, climate change, migration, sustainable development, conflict, how we deal with this increasing conflict that there is. And this requires us to kind of enlarge our role a bit, not just our topic, but our role, and see ourselves as being people who are leaders and commentators on these big issues, because we've got an awful lot to contribute. And I think in the past, we've underachieved in that as a profession. And the reason we've underachieved is because we focused far too much on the actual heritage, if I can say that. We focused on the monuments, on the sites, on the artifacts. And what we really need to do is focus on the people. And if we focus on the people, The people can look after their own artifacts, monuments, whatever. They don't need us to come in and do it for them. They can do it themselves. They just need us to assist them with our expertise. And we do have expertise. We have a lot of expertise, but we don't always use it very well. We have expertise in technical skills, but also just as important as soft skills. Skills of communication, of mediation, of listening to people, of being flexible in finding solutions. And these are things that need to be developed and need to be valued equally as much as technical skills. So going forward, we need to do everything we've done before, but we need to look at it more through the lens of the people and maybe not quite so much through the lens of the material heritage going forward. In talking about, one of the things that I was really pleased to see is that tonight's panelists actually all do that. They are all focusing on the big issues. And this is, this is very important to, within your own research, focus on something that is going to mean something to the public in general. So I see, for example, Fatemeh and Glyre, they're advocating the use of traditional knowledge to move forward. And Mwansa, I hope that's how you pronounce your name. Apologies if it's not, covers an issue that is of quite exceptional importance. That is the potential of digitization to distort the historical narrative, to provoke conflict and legitimize potentially territorial expansion. This is absolute key importance. And we've got a lot, and we should have a lot to say on this, because we can be, and we should be, trusted informants. We should be an alternative to governments, to politicians, to other people who are talking about this. And we should be the voice that is trusted by people. And we can do this. This is something that we can do, and we should be doing more often. The other thing that I feel quite strongly about, and I see is also addressed in the panelists tonight, is that we talk a lot about sustainable development, and that, of course, is key. We have to move forward with sustainable development. But I think we have to acknowledge, and perhaps we have to say something which might be seen as quite unpalatable, and that is for sustainable development of heritage, we probably need to do that without tourism, or at least without tourism in the model we have it at the moment. And tourism has been the #1 way, I mean, really sometimes the only way, that has been thought could be used to have sustainable development, and it has to be somehow focused around tourism. We have reached a stage where tourism is really as much of a liability to cultural heritage as it is an advantage at this point, at least in the way in which it's done now. And we need to find other models to move forward. And as our speakers tonight are going to tell us, there are other models. There are models of traditional knowledge, models of other ways of doing things, but we need to have the courage to stand up for it. And so I say to you all, good luck in this, but be bold and be confident, make your voice heard and move forward and offer alternative solutions, because we can do it and you can do it. They are there to be done. So with that, I'll sign off, and thank you very much for inviting me.
Thanks a lot, Valerie. I think that's a very powerful call to action. And with that in mind, I would like to go to our first speaker after this powerful keynote. I would like to introduce Fatemeh Zarnoosheh. I'm sorry if I pronounce it wrong. And let me check your bio. She is a master's student in architecture at the Politecnico di Torino, where she focuses on the conservation and adaptive reuse of earthen architecture in arid climates. Her thesis titled Shadows of Earth explores Iran's historic houses, known as yakchals, as models of climate responsive and community-based heritage. Through her fieldwork, she connects traditional knowledge with contemporary sustainable design practices, a perfect example of how heritage can offer solutions to today's environmental challenges. So, Fatemeh, if you're ready.
Yeah, sure. Hello, everyone. It's so nice to have you all here today. So I will share my screen first, which are the traditional ice houses in Iran, would be done. Well, first, I am going to introduce you to how the ancient Iranians found ways to adapt to the desert and super arid climate in central Iran. And the traditional ice houses or yakhchals were their way to tackle this environment. Through systemic thinking, they could do this process. And nowadays, this heritage is under a great threat. Through my site visits and community interviews, which was done in April 2025, I found a way which is a community-based response toward this matter, which we will see. Here we are in Iran, where 82% of the land is arid or semi-arid. In the past, the ancient Iranians found a way to tackle this environment with a passive cooling system. Sorry, I don't know why it doesn't go to the next slide. Okay. Here are the traditional ice houses or ice pits, which were the place for the ice production in winter and their storage during winter and summer. An ice house was built from a conical dome made of adobe and shade walls which made long shading on the shallow pools, which because of the water supply they could make shallow ice layers and then store them in the ice pits during the time for using them in summer. The water was supplied by another system called qanat, which was a system in arid climates with different access shafts and channels, which underground water could be extracted from these channels. But nowadays, this heritage is under threat. The abandonment as a result of modernization, because the modern refrigerators are used, so there is no need of the traditional yakhchals anymore. And also the structural deterioration and material degradation because of this abandonment, and also environmental factors like sandstorms that I personally saw when I was doing the field survey. As you can see, these places became a place to covered by garbage, which is a result of this abandonment. And also the cracks on the surface and material degradation, which can be seen here. And as I told you, the sandstorm, which I saw during my site visit in April. Due to the historical researches that I have done in the historical archives, I found out that the yakhchals were built and maintained by communities during the history. And this is a photo of the workers preparing ice in shallow ponds at the yakhchal complex of Jolfa in Isfahan in central Iran. And the ice production and distribution of it in summer were a social responsibility. So I found out that participatory conservation is the key to restore these yakhsals. Also, based on the community interviews that I've done with the local people there, such as a construction worker, a custodian of another landmark in that city, and a manager of tourism ecology, I found that the public engagement is both a cultural right and a precondition for conservation of these structures. This perspective comes from the historic role of neighborhoods in maintaining yakhsals. So these interviews revealed the local willingness for participation in this social event, even without any payments. And as a result, I found a community-based response for this matter. So I will activate these yakhsals as community-driven cultural cooling hubs for the vulnerable people, such as the construction workers that we saw, or also all the local people. And I hope this can be a good solution for this matter. And here is a little bibliography.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was very interesting. I've never heard of these houses before, so very, very interesting to hear. Yeah, if anyone has questions, you can put it in the chat, but we'll discuss it at the end. And now I would like to go to the next speaker, Mwansa Mfula. She is a Zambian scholar currently pursuing a master's degree in Paleolithic archaeology at the University of Tübingen in Germany, and she has a background in history, archaeology, and civic education from the University of Zambia. Her academic interests lie at the fascinating intersection of archaeology, digital heritage, and civic responsibility, and encourage us to consider the hybrid threats facing heritage in our increasingly digital world, including misinformation and cyber risks, if I'm all right by that. Yeah, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. So I'm a great honor to be part of this panelist. Good evening, everyone. As already introduced, my name is Mwansa Mfula. I'm an MA student in Paleolithic archaeology at the University of Tübingen in Germany. Okay, so let me just quickly share my screen. Okay, is everyone able to see my screen? I hope everyone is able to see my screen.
Yes, we can see it.
Yeah, thank you. So today I'll be looking at heritage under threat with a specific focus on hybrid threats. So particularly my main focus for tonight's discussion is digital and disinformation in an evolving technological world. As we all know, technology has taken over, and some of the pressing issues that we have right now is how we can include heritage into this evolving technology. For instance, we've seen the growing need of AI preservation, 3D modeling, online archives, and the list goes on. So as much as we uphold these new initiatives, I think it's also key for us to look at the threats or the dangers that some of these initiatives have on our heritage. So this is just a brief outline of my presentation. So when we talk of hybrid threats, what are hybrid threats? So these are basically a combination of physical, psychological, as well as digital threats that are used to destabilize societies. So basically, we get to see that different sources can be used to destabilize peace. So we're living in an era where heritage is beyond tangible property. We're living in world where now heritage is based on people's attitudes as well as relationships with the past. And these relationships are based on how people connect with the past. So how I connect to the past might not be how somebody else may connect to the past. So we get to see that these type of relationships that people have with the past can easily distort the originality of heritage. So we get to see that digital tools amplify ideological as well as political manipulation of heritage. As I have already said, we're living in an era where the definition of our heritage or of our past is based on how other people view it. And this raises the question of what is if what is important to me, is it also important to the next person? So we get to see that there's a line in between, and this leaves us a gap where information can easily be distorted. So we get to see that when we are talking about digital tools, we are looking beyond platforms such as television, newspapers, social media, AI. Obviously, AI is a hot topic currently. So these are tools that can easily put a threat to our heritage. And as we go on, I don't want to give you the tease right now. As we go on, I will get to explain how some of these tools can actually distort information and risk the originality of our heritage. Okay. So heritage in a digital era. So as I have already mentioned to say, we are in a world where technology is evolving. We're in the technological world. So definitely we need to embrace technology because it is here to stay and it keeps on evolving day by day. So we get to see how best can we actually utilize technology in order to preserve our heritage. So, but as we focus into how best we can fit into the preservation of our heritage, we must also take into consideration to say that there are risks that we are implementing. For instance, as we get to see some of the advantages of technology are digitalization, which increases access and preservation opportunities. Instead of having to go through archives or libraries, you can now easily access information online through online libraries, archives, online museums that are currently being implemented. So access has been made easier for everybody to have, which is a good thing. And also, I think it's a good way of preserving information, considering nowadays we have kids that are digitally charged. They obviously don't have time to sit in a library, go through certain archives. If they can do it online, well and good. So we also get to see that as much as it has all these advantages, we're also introducing our heritage to certain risks. For instance, data breaches, online misinterpretation, cyber hacking, and all those things. So any slightest misinformation that we put online can easily disfigure the originality of our heritage. So if someone was to write up something, I'll give an example of African history. I will gladly say most of our African history is not digitally preserved. So it's easy for people to easily misinterpret it. If somebody else that does not have the background of an African history, they can easily put up something online that may not align with the originality of it. But because there are no online sources to consult, that will be someone's truth, and people take it and say, oh, okay, this is probably the truth, or this is the history that we're looking at. But if me as an African gets to read this, I'll be like, no, this is not right, right? So we get to see that information can be easily distorted by just simply by someone typing the slightest of information. Everything is distorted and it loses its originality. And as we get to see, in all UNESCO's convention, the focus mainly on heritage is preserving the authenticity of heritage. So we get to see that we need to strike a balance between accessibility as well as protection. So what are some of the examples of these cyber threats, especially with a specific focus to digital and disinformation? We get to see that there's disinformation and propaganda. The spread of false information can cause havoc, because if people are able to just write something online that does not align with other people's heritage or their very own heritage, that's already disinformation. We get to also see that we are also putting our heritage to risk of cyber attacks on archives and museums. One simple hack and edit in an online archive or documentation can easily distort the information that is already available. The looting and digital trafficking. We get to see that as young people, we're often too excited. I'll give you an example. If you're on an archaeological team, right? We're often told not to publish anything, not to take pictures or anything before the information has been published. But often we get to see as young people, we're often too excited that sometimes we take pictures and we might upload them or send them to a friend that we trust. Maybe our friend also gets too excited, and before you know it, these images are leaking, and we would have actually distorted because these things have not been interpreted yet. So we'll be given access to interpretation from different people, which can cause a lot of confusion. We also get to see manipulated digital heritage. In the essence of us being patriotic, being powerful, other nations that are powerful and whatnot, they can easily manipulate digital heritage. What they say will be their truth, because in most instances, they're probably the powerful hand, or in me trying to be patriotic. For instance, if I'm being patriotic about my country, I might say certain things that are not even truth, just in order to paint my country as beautiful as it may be, or somebody else, just in taking pride in whatever it is you believe in, you can easily mislead people. Also, I get to see that cultural symbolism in conflict, and this is something I think I'm easily noticing online. Even when I was exploring certain things in Rome, I get to see that certain cultural practices, objects, personalization of objects and whatnot can easily cause conflict because people believe in different things. And also coming back to being patriotic and whatnot, but because you love certain things or certain places so much, you can easily cause conflict and take that as your truth. I'll just give you, it might not really relate, maybe a bit off. I'll just give you a snippet of a current debate that we have currently in Zambia. So I'll play the video, then I will explain. It won't be so long.
Where do you think this bread is from?
So this is
This is a Zambian bride.
Zambia. So that's a Zambian bride. She's wearing a national, one of our traditional costumes from the people, the commonly known as the Nchwala people. So she's basically wearing a traditional wedding dress. But we get to see that currently this is a hot topic on social media platforms because of people from Zimbabwe claiming to say, oh, that's not your costume. That's not a Zambian costume. This is a Zimbabwean costume. People from South Africa saying, no, that's a South African costume. People from Namibia are like, no, that's a Namibian costume. Yet we are forgetting to say, as Africans, we are all Bantu people and we share a common heritage. So this particular dress is Zambian. It's from the Nchwala tribe. But we get to see, because we share a common heritage line with our neighboring countries, they tend to forget that, and people are trying to make it seem like we are not entitled to that heritage, and yet we are all entitled to that. That's also our national attire. As much as it may be similar and they may think it's theirs, but it's also part of our national attires. So this is actually a hot debate online. People are writing paragraphs saying, no, this is not your heritage and whatnot. And yet when we sit down, we get to see that the Ngoni people of Zambia equally share such attires. So we get to see that such misinformation can easily distort. People say, oh, Zambians are copycats and whatnot, and yet it's also part of our heritage. So that's just a snippet that I wanted everyone to see. Then also talk of, so I'll just cruise, I know I have limited time. So how best can we protect heritage in a digital era? So I believe in order to safeguard heritage in a digital era, we must have a multi-layered approach. We must be able to have strengthening cyber laws that can protect our heritage. We must be able to promote digital literacy among heritage professionals and the public. Also collaborate with our local communities in order for them to give us the actual history as told by their mouth. I'll give an example. Most of our African history are oral traditions, and we get to see that you can only get to get more information when you actually seek the local communities, find out more on what it is that you're researching about. That's the only way you can get the truth out of these people. And I feel like it is very important to include them in whatever research that we carry on. Then also, I would also recommend encouraging partnerships between local museums, global institutions, collaborations. As she has said, the collaboration is quite hard because people often have their different opinions. So sometimes it's often hard to compromise on or come down to an agreement. But I feel like this is one of the best ways that we can actually address some of these pressing issues that we have. So I'll just wind up by saying, currently heritage extends beyond sites and monuments. Right now, our past is our present. Whatever we do, our identity, everything, our current practices, it's all of a collective memory that will also be known as a past. And how we preserve it should be vital. It should touch all aspects of life, be it environmental, hybrid, digital, all aspects of it should be touched in order for us to preserve our history. So I'll end here, and I would like to say thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your perspective on heritage in the digital age and heritage in times of hybrid threats. I'm already thinking of a question, but we have to quickly go to the next speaker, which is Glyre Treasure Faeldonia, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. And he is a British Filipino researcher specializing in sustainable development, climate policy, and urban resilience. And he's holding a master's degree in global development from the University of Manchester. He is currently serving as the national representative for the Climate Action Working Group of ICOMOS Philippines, where he contributes to global dialogues on climate and heritage. And his work focuses on advancing inclusive, sustainable, and culturally grounded approaches by integrating both scientific and indigenous knowledge into policy. Glyre, thank you for being with us, and the stage is yours.
Thank you. Thank you for the floor, and thank you for the previous speakers. Good evening, everyone. It's an honor to be here for Heritage Under Threat and to share perspectives that I hope encourage us to rethink what protecting heritage truly means in the face of crisis. When we talk about heritage under threat, we often picture crumbling monuments, conflict zones, or rising sea levels. But I want to begin by suggesting that one of the deepest, most enduring threats to heritage isn't physical at all, it's ideological, which is also in a way that echoes Miss Valerie Higgins' very powerful passage earlier. It lies in the way we define value and those who value and whose values we prioritize when protecting heritage and environment. So I'll begin with talking about the current paradigm in incorporating heritage and development. Um, so today's development frameworks, even those aiming for sustainability, often rest upon market-based logic, efficiency, profit, and growth. These frameworks have shaped the way we both manage heritage and nature. However, either of those are not commodities. They are living systems of meaning, belonging, and interdependence. Across Southeast Asia and other parts of the world, indigenous and local communities have safeguarded cultural landscapes and ecosystems for centuries, not because of profit, but because their ways of life are inherently tied to them. However, when modern development and scientific paradigms impose external systems of value, they often marginalize or erase the very people whose knowledge that rely on. And my core argument for this presentation is that to ensure the longevity of both cultural and natural heritage, we must move away from market-based approaches and instead embrace values-based, community-led systems rooted in traditional systems and indigenous epistemologies. Unfortunately, many conservation efforts, whether in climate action or heritage preservation, have historically followed a top-down model. Governments, donors, or international bodies decide what is worth protecting, and communities are often consulted only at later stages, if at all. This leads to well-intentioned projects that protect sites but displace people or preserve artifacts but erase living traditions. So this means we should shift from heritage management to heritage relationship, where communities are not seen as beneficiaries or instruments of policy, but as independent actors and custodians of their heritage. It also means acknowledging that scientific and indigenous knowledge systems must coexist. The former offers precision and scalability, while the latter offers depth, continuity, and moral compass grounded in coexistence with nature. In rethinking value, must think beyond the market. One of the challenges in heritage and environment policy is how value is defined and measured. Market systems value what can be priced, tourism revenue, material assets, and land use. But communities also value stories, rituals, relationships, and things that don't fit into economic metrics. By recognizing communities as independent actors, and by doing so, we enable ownership, agency, and equitable outcomes. Heritage is really the strongest when those who live it lead it. A values-based approach asks us to rethink this imbalance. Instead of asking, how can heritage contribute to development, we might ask, how can development honor and sustain heritage? This inversion changes everything. It moves for us from heritage as a product to heritage as a process, one that nurtures both identity and ecological integrity. Here's where indigenous epistemologies offer a transformative lens. From the Subaran people from whom I descend in the southern Philippines, the land and the rivers are not resources, they are kin. Their stewardship practices are shaped by interdependence and spiritual respect, not extraction. This philosophy isn't unique to the Subanon. It echoes across indigenous communities worldwide, from the Maori in Aotearoa to the Sami in Northern Europe. Recognizing and integrating such indigenous perspectives isn't merely a moral act of inclusion, it's a pragmatic necessity. And as the climate crisis accelerates, these acknowledged systems are among our best defenses against ecological and cultural loss. So I would like to draw on a really famous example in the Philippines, which are the Ifugao indigenous people. In the Cordilleras Mountains in northern Philippines lives the Ifugao indigenous people in their ancient rice terraces, a UNESCO World Heritage Site as well. The rice terraces embody the cultural identity, collective wisdom, and heritage of the Ifugao, passed down through generations, as well as being in the heart of the socio-economic fabric of society. In their indigenous knowledge system, IKS, they possess the concept of tawid, or binotan, according to which the sustainable management of the land and its resources is guided by the responsibility towards future generations. And part of their invaluable cultural heritage that shows their relationship with the natural landscape is their tinawan, which is the general name for the rice varieties found in the province, meaning once a year. Grown in a span of 6 months, the rice is planted from December to February to be harvested in mid-June to August, based on its height placement along the rice terraces. Mbumbaki, a ritual specialist, then performs rituals for prosperity of the harvest and the relationship between the Ifugao and their environment. Currently, the Tanawan is threatened by the pressing impacts of climate change, endangering both their sources of income and shared memory of their natural landscape. But here's where an amalgamation of cultural heritage and sustainable development can work together and harmonize and deliver very actionable outputs. In a research early this year, amongst Filipino researchers, farmers are shown in Ifugao province how their indigenous knowledge can work together with current sustainable technologies, or are known as environmental conservation agriculture, which is further enhanced through the support of community-based approaches. The Ifugao farmers have employed sustainable methods from their indigenous knowledge systems, using organic fertilizers and pesticides, practicing composting, and implementing crop rotation to maintain soil health and fertility. At the same time, the contemporary interventions as provided by private actors and also government support provided high-yielding and drought-resistant crops and updated agricultural technologies. ECA enabled the adoption of both the indigenous wisdom and the updated technologies, ensuring that the farmers can have a high yield rice yields, at the same time ensuring that their source of income is sustaining to further longevity. And as results showed in the research, 30% there was shown a 30% reduction in soil erosion, 25% increase in rice yields, and improved water retention across terrace plots. While not only thus has preserved their way of a source of income, it also preserved their cultural identity, ensuring the resilience of the Ifugao's Tinawan, while proving that indigenous practices are not static but adaptive and innovative. The Ifugao is one of many successful examples that we can draw inspiration from to incorporate indigenous wisdom in cultural and environmental protection, and in turn preserving cultural heritage. So in order concepts I propose in moving forward, to materialize a future that honors our cultural heritage and enhance climate resilience, we must integrate indigenous epistemologies into formal frameworks not as cultural tokens, but as ecosystems of knowledge, reform development metrics to include cultural and relational well-being, not just economic returns, empower local leadership through inclusive policy designs, capacity building, and funding that supports community-led projects, and encourage disciplinary collaboration between scientists, anthropologists, local leaders, and youth networks to bridge worldviews. And as we face hybrid threats from misinformation to climate change, such plural inclusive approaches will be our strongest line of defense. And in conclusion, heritage under threat is not just about what we might lose, it's also about what we might rediscover if we listen. To protect heritage is to protect relationships between people and place, past and future, nature and culture. And perhaps the most radical act of protection today is humility, to recognize that the answers to sustainability may already exist within the wisdom of those who have safeguarded and protected the earth far longer than modern systems have existed. Thank you.
Thank you, Glyre, very much for your also your perspective on this other topic, namely heritage and climate threats. And with that, I would like to open the floor for any questions to all our speakers. You can put your questions in the chat box or simply raise your Zoom hand, and then I will give you the floor. Okay, I already see one chat. Hello, my name is Alan Minoui, a practicing architect from Milan. I have a question for the first presenter out of curiosity. My question is, since adobe structures are sensitive to moisture and water, how did traditional yakshals manage to store and maintain ice inside them without damaging the adobe walls? So I think that's for Fatemeh.
Yes. Hello, Alan. Well, the ancient Iranians used practical mortar, sorry, called saruj, which is a water-resistant mortar made of limestone and clay. and the ice pits were covered by this mortar to be water resistant.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, I'm Alan. All right. So from what I'm hearing is, so it's like a special, let's say, a cover that comes on the Adobe walls on the material that makes it waterproof.
Yes,
With
exactly.
Okay. Well, I didn't know that. That's interesting. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alan, for your question. Is there anyone else with... I see a hand. Martha?
Hello. Sorry, I've got a very bad cold. I'm Martha Kayuni, a PhD student with the Max Planck Institute here in Vienna, Germany, and an archaeology lecturer at the University of Zambia. First of all, I want to give gratitude to the organizers for this wonderful talk and the amount of knowledge that has been exerted here. Mine is a small comment in relation to what Valerie and Mwansa indicated. Valerie gave a statement on us experts. I do not even like calling myself an expert, but we are in the field. So from that perspective, I'll do that. As experts, we need to be the voice that is trusted by policymakers. I think that is very cardinal, especially at this particular time where heritage is very threatened at different levels. And I want to give an incident in my country where I sit on the board for World Heritage Commission for Zambia, where we've been having challenges with our heritage sites, most of them which are found in rural areas, and it's very hard to monitor the sites in as much as we have caretakers, but sometimes the distance, the road network is so bad. By the time you're getting there physically, you find the state of affairs has shifted. There's currently there are two sites that we are supposed to excavate, and I want to give this background. We have Leopard's Hill Cave, which is a site that harbors late Stone Age to Iron Age, which is basically late Pleistocene to Holocene artifacts. The same with Kalemba. The Leopard's Hill Caves is in Lusaka, about 20 kilometers from the CBD area. Kalemba Rock Shelter, with the same chronology, is in the Eastern Province, just on the border of Zambia and Malawi. What the threat that these two sides have gone through is disheartening, because not only have the materials that were exposed with time been stolen, but the rock cut has been distorted. They've engraved with current, what they call their personal motifs. People go and write. There's now quarry happening at the site. Even our biggest rock cut platform in Southern Africa, which is the Mwela rock cut site, you find all sorts of activities. And by the time we are giving policymakers our views, the reaction that comes forth from government sometimes is very delayed. From that angle, as experts, how would you advise national heritage, archaeologists, and other stakeholders who are carriers of the knowledge of the value of heritage to implement and to preserve and conserve sites, with the idea that sometimes you can speak, you can indicate, you can show that this is the value, but others do not take it seriously? What are your comments? Thank you.
Is your question for whom is your question?
My question is to everyone,
To
anyone
everyone.
who would want to advise, because I think everyone here's goal and strategy is to preserve this threatened heritage. But how do we combat some of these challenges? even as experts, when you are trying to give your voice and there is no willingness from political stakeholders, for instance, because these are national sites, but the funding cannot be attained from the institutions that monitor this because the funding comes from government. How do you lure in? And it's not like grants have not been applied for. It's very difficult in Africa, especially if you're an African writing to apply for a grant. So I've gotten to a point where I believe in collaborations, but still, how do you bring in government to pay particular attention to preserve this heritage that we are losing at a very fast rate? Thank you.
I see, Valerie, I think you wanted to respond.
Well, I'm not sure I can, because I wouldn't, presume to say anything about an area that I don't know, and you will know far more about it than I do. I can only respond by talking more generally and saying that as a whole, as a profession, we do need to sometimes be much more bold and ambitious in our statements, I think. And we need to put ourselves in a position where they can't really be ignored. And I think if you look around at other professions, other areas, other disciplines have done it better than we have done it, for example, I would say. And we can look maybe at how they did it and see if we can learn lessons. I'm thinking in particular of natural heritage professionals. I think they are better at getting out to the general public and getting out to political leaders the importance of the natural environment, and also World Wildlife Fund, for example. I think in support of endangered species, they also have been better than we have been at this. It seems that if you talk about an endangered species, an animal, you can get massive support. If you say we have an endangered culture, then we don't seem to be able to get the same attention. So I can't really comment, I'm afraid, Martha, on your own position. I simply don't know it well enough. But I would say that other areas have done this better than we have been doing it. And I think we need to look at how they do that, frankly. How do they get their concerns on the agenda? Because they do, and they do it better than we do it. I just don't think we've been very good at it. And I think one of the reasons maybe we've not, I mean, it does take a long time to get to that position. It's not something that happens overnight. And I think one of the problems with cultural heritage is that for too long, it was focused on elite cultural heritage. It was like the only cultural heritage that counted was if you had, a Rembrandt or a Michelangelo, or if you had a cathedral or a palace or something, and for a lot of people, that's what it is. And to be honest, the World Heritage List didn't really help a lot in that regard. I mean, it's getting better now, but it was so disproportionate in its early days. And I think that's a legacy we've got to overcome. We need to overcome that. And we just need to be better at that kind of thing. And I really believe in working through the community, and I totally agreed with everything Glyre says. I also know that if you don't get in the people at the top, you won't succeed in your objectives. Because if you are very successful at a community level and you cannot manage to engage the people at the top, they will squash you because they will consider it too threatening. So you have to do this kind of juggling thing of working from the bottom up at the same time as trying to get the top down to meet you. You have to do both things at the same time. Otherwise, you could be very successful on one level. And I think this is maybe what Martha is saying, it's not connecting down, so you just get nowhere at a certain point, which is incredibly frustrating. And again, I think other areas have done this better. They've realized it better and they've known how to do it. I don't know if I've answered your question, Martha, but I think, you know, I think you're in a very frustrating situation. I have every sympathy for you on that.
Yes,
Yeah,
actually, you have to a certain extent, but it's a situation where, for instance, the Wildlife Authority is in the same predicament. The World Heritage Commission is in the same predicament. And we are also coming from a system where the government has not, there's a debate in Zambia where history and archaeology are considered irrelevant to society. And probably, for me, maybe I'm assuming, because probably I am talking from a perspective where the communities have been engaged. They're the key stakeholders we engage to man and look over the sites. But obviously, a lot has to be done. The minister believes in natural heritage, not, so this is the tangible heritage, which and only for very few sites. And this is a country that has got more than 4,000 archaeological sites. And maybe you are right to say there is a disconnect between the top, which I think there is, the top and the bottom. But also it's what I think one holds value to. Because if you're coming from a system where the government is insistent that this which you are talking about is irrelevant, and I've come to a point of asking experts, how best do you communicate that heritage is significant? How do we make government realize that this is a very viable part of society that we cannot lose because it holds the roots to our history? And like many countries, a lot of governments are using it even for economic enhancement. So I don't know. But thank you so much. You've brought out very good points.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there another question? Maybe. Don't see anything in the chat. No. I think we're also running a bit out of time. So if there is one other last question, maybe.
Yes, maybe I would like to have a question for Fatemeh, because you mentioned in your presentation that you started to engage the local community. And I was wondering, like, if you have any more concrete plans, in what way you want to include them in the conservation of these kind of historical structures. Or could you tell us briefly a little bit more about that part? Or maybe you already mentioned that it's with biodiversity.
No, I will mention right now. As we saw in the history, the custodianship of these structures were a responsibility for the community, right? Like the local people were responsible to do that. So I was thinking, especially because during my interview, I found out that most of the people in Abarku city where I am doing my thesis were construction workers. And also, they said that they are eager to contribute to this project. So I was thinking also not only for the construction and the like the restoration phase, that we can use this local people. Also, in the future for the management or the custodianship of these structures, we can ask them to do that. Is it clear or?
Could I ask Fatemeh a quick question?
Sure.
It's a bit of a technical question, so but I'm just interested in this. The Romans also had ice houses, and they made ice by taking snow from the mountains and packing it in very hard, so there's a lot of pressure, and that turned it into ice. Is that the same way? Does the Iranian?
No, this is totally different. I don't know if it might be better to share a slide right now. If we have time, it's okay.
Sure.
Okay. Well, uh, in this, sorry. In these shallow pools, they use this water that come to this pool to make ice layer by layer in winter. Like when in the night, the temperature is very down, especially in these desert areas. It's much low. They made like layers by 1 to 2 centimeters, and then when this ice is made, they were breaking it and putting it here into this ice pit, and that's how they produced ice. It's totally different from the Roman way.
Thank you. It's
You're
interesting.
welcome.
Okay, thank you for the question. One quick last question for Glyre and Mwansa. I think you both mentioned two different threats to heritage, and I both wanted to ask you what you would advise young people like us to do against these threats. You already mentioned it a bit, but maybe like a call to action to round up the talks event.
So was that addressed to me?
No, to Glyre and Mwansa.
Glyre, okay.
Sorry, you go first, Mwansa.
Thank you. Okay, so I think as young people, I feel like the most important thing we can begin with is actually having interest and coming on board. I already like the fact that we have such organizations that are bringing youth together to discuss such pertinent issues. So we get to see, for instance, as Madam Kayuni emphasized to say, in our country, heritage is suffering because we get to see that you cannot preserve what you're not interested in, I believe. If you're not interested in something, you will not have any interest to preserve it because you don't care. It does not concern you. You believe it does not concern you, so why should you preserve it? So I feel like the first thing we should do as young people is actually get involved, have interest, know your culture, enjoy it like it's yours, enjoy it. So have interest, get to know more about it. I feel like you can also, knowing is one thing, but also having interest, when you have knowledge about it, when you get to realize the importance that it holds, you actually get to have interest in order for you to preserve it. For me, I feel like, yes, I do hold a bachelor's degree in history and I'm currently doing archaeology. There are certain things that, as much as I was studying these two programs, there are certain things I'll be like, some of these things are not that important and whatnot. But I feel like now that as I grow, as I get to explore different places, I get to hear from different people, I'm slowly actually getting involved, and I'm actually frustrated at how, I'll speak for my country, how some of us lack the interest in actually preserving our heritage and culture. So I feel like that's the most important aspect we can do as young people. Get involved, get interested, know your culture, and aim to preserve it. So I feel like that's the best thing that we can do. Thank you.
My answer is in the same vein as Mwansa. But instead of interest, I like to use the word passion, because if you're passionate in what you do, it'll carry you throughout the rest of your life. And it appears that people, especially youth, are afraid to exercise their passion, especially in the field of cultural heritage. But but it's actually the passion that created an organization such as ESACH to bring everyone together, to bring fellow youth, and also to draw inspiration from the people who have paved the way for us to be here, like Madame Valerie Higgins, with her years of seminal research in cultural heritage, and to able to share that to us right now is an excellent honor, and also just another true definition of passion from her side as well, to continue what she's doing to this day and able to share her time to us. So yeah, in short words, don't be afraid to exercise your passion, because that's one thing that a lot of threats nowadays, wherever that might be, is will never take away from us. I'm sorry if I'm not mistaken. Didn't say that properly, but yeah.
Thank you. Thanks to the both of you, and I think I couldn't agree more. Thank you all for this amazing night, and all the motivational speeches, and also teaching, learning us more about all these threats and your researches. And I would like to extend a huge thank you to all our speakers, Valerie, Glyre, Mwansa, Fatemeh. Thank you for all your valuable perspectives and sharing your passion with us. And yeah, I think in summary, there is an urgent need for innovative, community-centered and interdisciplinary action to protect our shared heritage for the future. And that's also why we're here, I think. And I hope this discussion has left you all feeling informed and inspired. And on behalf of ESACH, I would like all of you to thank you for joining us tonight, and please follow us on our socials or our website, of course, to stay updated on our future events. Included our next talks in December, which will focus on heritage in conflicts. So thank you all again, and have a wonderful evening.